Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Banter Blitz sessions. There will be, well, at least this one, and I'm not sure what's in store for the one rest day they have in Vike for the time that I am here, which is on the 18th. I probably will end up doing something. I'm not sure if it will be Banter Blitz or something else. Sound okay? Sound seems to be okay. So, well, I've had a bit of a sabbatical. Didn't even play the Rapid and Blitz in Doha because I fell quite seriously ill and just was in no shape to fly, and it took me a while to recover. And I seem to be sort of back to some kind of reasonable shape. So, from tomorrow there will be the Vike coverage, to which you're all, of course, heartily invited. And for today, let's do maybe a couple of hours of banter. I will try and keep an eye on chat, but since I haven't done this in a while, I think I will try to pay more attention to what I'm doing on the board because don't want to do too badly. And yeah, with that, I mean, there will be plenty of time to talk about what's happening in Vike. And anyway, there's not a lot to say apart from that. It's a varied and varied actually, and a very interesting field. Some people are missing because Gibraltar is particularly strong this year, but still should be a fantastic event to cover. And I expect a lot of fun to be had by all, me and Jan, not excluded definitely. But yeah, let's start playing chess today. Uh, Weird. I think. Yeah. Okay. I know why that is. Now I can do things. And yeah. There we go. Didn't even forget to switch to the board, which is impressive by my standards. There was a somewhat weird to my eyes request for a semi-Slav, which I will try to fulfill immediately so that we can get that out of the way. I'm not really an active Slav player these days. And that, what you're seeing right now is one of the reasons, obviously. You don't really want to be facing the exchange Slav necessarily. But I mean, I've seen White lose these positions. They are not immediately completely drawn. And the way White loses these positions, if he ever does lose these positions, is by sort of playing all out for a draw without any consideration, like trying to simplify at every turn without any consideration for, potential weakening of his position that he may be doing. And this, you can even generalize there. I don't particularly like generalizing about many things, but in that case, you can even generalize and say that when playing for a draw with White, it is generally more advisable to play normally, if at all possible. And then when the position gets defined a lot better, you can start looking for opportunities to make an immediate draw somewhere. Whereas if you do what my opponent seems to be doing here, just go for a position where you can trade some pieces and then just take every single trade available to you, you will probably end up worsening your position to such an extent that draw might become difficult. And yeah, I am currently much better, maybe close to winning. And even without the move b2 before, White's position on the queen side was somewhat compromised. And I think it was a strange decision considering that my opponent seemed to be interested in simplifying and making his position as safe as possible, that he took with the pawn on e5. I think keeping complete symmetry was more consistent with his game plan, as I understand it. But yeah, after b4, the queen side is so weak, and also knight b2 is such a huge threat right now that I think the queen side just starts collapsing. I think I'll just start taking these pawns. I don't really see any need for finesse anymore. You can just start collecting here. Once again, there are probably more. I mean, I generally like to look for ways, like not not to play a capture every turn, because it's more interesting to convert by doing something more exciting. But in some positions, there really is no need to. There really is no need to do anything special once the queen starts collapsing. But yeah, normally they take with the bishop, and then black plays knight d7 and plays something like rook c8, queen a5. Probably starts with queen a5 to stop knight a4, knight c5. And the thing about the exchange Slav, if these two bishops remain on the board, the structure sort of favors black a little bit, not by a lot, of course. And white should, of course, still make a very comfortable draw in a position like this. But this bishop is slightly better than the bishop on g3, because the black has his pawns on the light squares, and you can sometimes run into difficulties even if you do that. But by taking with the pawn and then allowing me to assume control over the light squares on the queen side, my opponent has given me way too much play. Yeah, not gonna play the Berlin, Coco. That's one thing that you will not see during these sessions. I haven't actually faced 3c5 in a very, very long time, and there's a number of interesting things you can do here. One of them being this move. And this is a bit of a weird, well, slight sideline. I wouldn't call it exactly a sideline, because very serious players have done this. But the evaluation of this idea is not immediately obvious. The point is, white just abandons all pretense of hanging on to the e5 pawn and aims for very fast development, hoping to eventually play c2, c4, undoubling his c-pawns. And the bishop on b2 obviously is a very nice piece. You have to pay attention to, as usual, to the a5 pawn breaks. But with the bishop on b2 and the good squares for the knight on c6 being unavailable, I think I can even play b5 in many positions there. And I don't want to allow e7, e5 immediately, so I'll start with bishop b2. I think we castle here, and the plan should be, I guess, knight bd2 and c4, or maybe knight e5 in some positions, but I like connecting the knights first. And there will be a tactical justification for us playing b4 later, because if he plays d4 in reply, we can take on d4, knight takes d4, bishop takes g4. It will be more obviously understandable on the next move. a5 now is a serious option he needs to consider, I think, but if all else fails, I can play knight e5. I think this probably isn't correct, although with the pin on the king's side, this might actually be playable, but I'd be very surprised. I mean, it allows bishop b5. It also allows b5 and c6, as I now realize, which might be even simpler. Just get this monstrous protected passed pawn on the 6th. Should always be something you don't mind, to put it mildly. And there is no way to undermine it, really, so this is a huge, huge problem for my opponent here. I think I want to trade a pair of knights. I'm just choosing between knight d4 and, I mean, a pair of bishops. I'm choosing between knight d4 and knight e5. I'm not sure which one is better. I think knight e5 is more natural here. You can play bishop f5, but once again, if I really want to trade the bishops, I can play bishop d3. The reason I considered knight d4 was just to make sure that he takes on e2. Yeah, perhaps it was for that reason. Perhaps it was slightly more precise to go knight d4. But once again, this I'm not even sure if if this can be called a misplay, and it shouldn't really change the evaluation of the position anyway. I'll just continue developing because I have this monster on c6, and also the knight on a5 is not the the most active of pieces here, so I have a number of plans I can consider. I'll go with this for now and put the other one on f3. Because, as long as I control some kind of counterplay in the center connected with, I don't know, bishop d6, rook e8, e5, and it should be easy enough to control just by planting the second knight on e5. My position is just overwhelming because even if you imagine, let's say, this knight on a5 being on some good square like c5, then the position would be less clear, but white would still be, of course, a lot better due to the passed pawn on c6. But with the knight on a5 also not really participating in the game, white's advantage, provided I don't blunder anything, should be overwhelming. If he plays bishop d6 here, I now realize that if I go knight e5, he has knight e4, which is maybe something I should pay attention to. But I can also start by playing rook a4 and doubling on the a file, for instance, and then sort of switch between the center and the queen side for future plans. Yeah, we will be doing Vikings A, and we will also, I think, be keeping an eye on the B group as well. It's a very interesting mixture of young players there, and I think it's very much worth everyone's time to pay attention to that as well. I'm playing bishop b5 because I kind of want to give him this option of trading queens there, and then the knight might get to d7, which would immediately decide the game. If he wants to take on a5, he needs to play knight f6 immediately later, but yeah, but then I should find a way to open the queen side up somehow. I started eating less, mainly. Where's your mic? It was I did not really start doing anything serious, sort of gym related, although I am doing some of that now. But my initial approach was just eat less, eat healthier. That actually works for a majority of people. I'm not even sure this is such a good move. I was considering just playing rook takes a5, but now that he's allowed me to play knight d7, it feels very stupid not to. But if he takes on d7 here and plays knight d6, it might actually be a bit tricky. I'm a bit unhappy about this. This is a very, very premature position in which to resign. Because let's say I take on a5 twice here, he goes rook d8. I might be winning by force after something like rook a7, king f8, b6, king e7, b7. This might be enough. Or this might completely bust my position. No, I think this actually is winning. Then maybe this idea connected with the plan of playing bishop a6 and rook a8 might still be winning, but I would need to calculate some variations, so resigning here really doesn't make any sense to me at all. Yeah, the decision has been taken as an experiment, to have the Vike coverage only available for premium users only, and we'll see. By we, I mean the company. I wasn't involved in making the decision. We'll see how that works out. Okay. Should Cook do another Ashes tour? I think if he continues playing as a batsman, he'll play for a while yet. That would be my, initial feeling, that he probably should not be captaining anymore because he doesn't seem to be enjoying it. Not for any other reason, to be honest, but simply because he doesn't seem to be enjoying it very much. But as for playing as a batsman, I think he still has a lot to contribute. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do against bishop b2, to be honest. I think maybe I will try playing b5, bishop b7 as early as possible. Yeah, the royal we. The royal we was very much in evidence there. This is the problem with the early b5 though, because now I cannot really play knight f6 because of e5, which is very, very awkward. And he will play rook e1, knight d5 against almost any two moves that I can make. Yeah, this is why I'm less than entirely happy about my choice. And if I play knight c6, knight takes c6, d takes c6 to take the sting out of potential knight d5 ideas, I think he just goes e4, e5, and those positions can be extremely dangerous for black. I will try to somehow deal with all this, but I mean, all the moves I'm sort of considering here are extremely risky simply because of rook e1, knight d5 against absolutely anything. I've managed, I think, to play myself into a very annoying situation here. I would like to play bishop d6, but I'm not entirely honest. Yeah, I think if I play bishop d6, this is my game against the late great Vogar Gashimov from one of the Baku Grand Prix. a4 is very, very strong there. I will show this actually after the game if I remember, because this is a very, very beautiful tactic which I missed in that game against Vogar. And I was completely wiped off the board in that game. I believe that was my first ever game against Vogar, and for some reason I thought when preparing for the game that he was this, strict positional player who valued like the precise placement of pieces and so on. And he just completely destroyed me tactically. Now with the knight on b3, I think I can actually do this, and I'm quite happy to do this because this creates some issues for my opponent. Bishop on e5 looks awkward, but on the other hand, he does need to now somehow solve the issue of the pawn on e4 being under attack. And I should be able to, I mean, if he goes bishop g2, f4 will become a threat, but by that point I should be able to find some counterplay to justify this bishop on e5. Like I can start by castling. I'm actually not entirely happy about all this, to be honest. I wanted to play b4 here, but it's a bit messier than I originally thought. But I probably can still do this. Knight a4, I want to play bishop c6. But yeah, I mean, it does become extremely concrete, and I might run into some very, very serious turbulence there. For instance, as I now realize, knight a4, bishop c6, f4 is very, very unpleasant. Yeah, that sequence of moves was not my finest hour. Maybe queen c6, no, but queen c6 is even worse. I have to do this. But now if he plays f4, yeah, knight c5 I am very, very happy to see, because now I can simply take on b2. And I solve my issues. It's not about the b2 pawn, it's about the fact that my bishop actually escaped from the very, very bad square on e5 where it had no moves. But he could have played bishop c6, f4 there, and I think I was in a lot of trouble tactically. I might still not be doing all that great if he plays e5 here, but at least we have a pawn, and if we somehow finish development, if the knight on b8, well, if it gets out from the b8 square, we should be doing okay. And yeah, I've seen something in chat, so I can now or never. I understand that it is sort of these types of shows are apparently exactly why you joined, and I appreciate that. But a because my challenge list is reasonably long, I cannot and never do promise to play everyone who challenged me. And B, sort of specifically spamming in chat to pick you does not help. It has been proven not to help, so don't do that. I maybe have had some more interesting tactical opportunities because this move f3 actually gives me this intermediate check on a7. And right now my opponent needs to move the queen away from c3, otherwise queen a7 followed by bishop takes c4 will be very, very strong. But I just wanted to play, yeah, this is not good. But I wanted to play a5 just to take that square away from the knight on b3. I wasn't really looking at any kind of tactical opportunities because frankly I didn't expect him to play f3. It's not a move you normally want to make. And yeah, and the tactic I wanted to show you, I believe I had this precise position on the board there. And here against Vogar, I thought for a while, and I thought this seems to work out because if he takes, I take on h2, he goes king h1, I can play queen, well, more or less anywhere, let's say c5. And the knight is hanging and the bishop will come back to e5 next move. And I played bishop d6 expecting g3, bishop e5, and some kind of a weird position arises. And Vogar thought for about 5 minutes and play a2, a4. And I realized that with a pawn on a4, if I play b4 now, he just goes knight b5, well frankly any knight, I don't know, this one or the other one, doesn't really matter. And in this position, with the knight being protected, I just get completely crushed because I cannot abandon the bishop on h2, and if I go queen e5, he just goes g3. And in this position, the fact that I cannot stop knight d6 check will be completely decisive. I just lose material or get mated or something. So I ended up, I believe, playing bishop takes h2, king h1, bishop b5, he took on b5. And then my queen side is just completely ruined. I mean, the knight on b8, it's almost impossible to imagine how I will include it in the game. And I mean, I fought valiantly, but I was never really allowed back into the game and lost quite badly. Okay, moving on. Let's make some other first moves as well. I'm not sure what you mean, Portis, too, about the Olympiad experience. Okay, my opponent really is forcing me to play the Sicilian, so I will oblige. I mean, our Olympiad experiences were very, very different because we were playing for different teams. Not quite sure what exactly you mean there. Yeah, people are playing queen f3 here, and it's been extremely annoying to me as a black player, so maybe I should try once to do it as white as well. I think we castle here. I think we wait for one move until to play queen g3. Yeah, now I think it's time. This is did I blunder knight g4? I did blunder knight g4, didn't I? Kind of disgusted with myself right now. You kind of need to think about things you do before you do them. That seems like good business practice. Yeah, that is a huge amnesty for me because after knight g4, knight c6, knight e3, I don't think I can even equalize. And now I should be back to being safely slightly better. Yeah, but I do get annoyed with myself sort of very, very seriously when I do things like that. And once again, I'm probably allowing too much by allowing knight takes e4 here, but I really want to land this knight on b6. Didn't really want f3, b5. Although, once again, probably was a safer idea not to do this. Because I think my opponent can now take on e4, and if I take on g7, he can take on f2. My play in this game so far has been... Yeah, in this I just completely missed. Really not playing well this game. Trying to do too much, frankly. It's a very nice endgame now that my opponent hasn't played knight g4, and I was trying to squeeze way too much out of it. Yeah, you're supposed to take on c6 first, of course. But once again, for some reason my opponent decides not to punish me. It feels like I'm getting way too much trust from him for no real reason. At least none that I can see in this game. If he plays d5 here, he's still fine, which casts a very, very serious doubt over my entire concept with knight a4. Because even if black kind of declines a healthy extra pawn in the center and still equalizes comfortably, probably the whole idea was completely unnecessary. Yep. Black generally is just completely fine in endgames like this. They are still playable endgames, but there can be no argument that white is somehow better. I would like to play both bishop d3 and g4. And I think if I start with g4, black maybe might want to consider playing e5, e4. So I'll start with bishop d3. But now h5 might not be a bad idea at all. And suddenly there's very, very loud lounge music being played, seemingly very close outside, which is not an occurrence I have encountered before in the Chess24 offices. Maybe there's a party going on to which I'm not invited, which would be very, very normal. I might be able to pose some questions now, because I think my opponent misplaced his pieces a little bit. I could also just double on the H file. Actually, once again, I think maybe I'm overreacting to minor tactical ideas. The idea here, if he goes rook d7, I have bishop e4, but as I now realize, this will only win me the d file, but I will not be able to take on b7 anyway, which once again kinda makes me question whether this was the best move considered compared to just doubling on the h file and attacking the h7 pawn. Chess24 is very central in Hamburg. It's very nice. I mean, the neighborhood here is very, very nice. No, I don't think there are very many online savants, so to speak, who would crush live chess, so to speak, if they were given the chance. I think chess is not that kind of a game. You're either good at it or you're not, and it shouldn't really matter very much where you're playing. Once again, this is very, very far from clear. My position is obviously excellent because of the time advantage that I have, but objectively I probably don't have very much. Yeah, this needs to be controlled somehow. And I don't really see how. I should probably have not allowed this at all. Although I may be winning some material on the queen side, but yeah, this king f4 king g3 plan is very, very annoying. I will waste the tempo to protect the g2 pawn. I think it's very, very important not to give up on g2, because if we do, we will find it very difficult to convert. But I think I'm probably safe enough just picking this up, because I have rook c2 after rook g7. And the bishop on b7 is very important because it keeps my king side together. Having said that, I have just allowed king g3 back, which is not a good idea. I think this is a draw now, because he can just take and play king g3, and I cannot keep the f3 pawn alive. But yeah, this game was full of mistakes, large and small, mainly from my side, to be honest. I think my opponent mainly just played too slowly in the opening, and this is why I was even able to get anywhere at all in this endgame. Somewhere here I should not be. Well, maybe I'm slightly better, but not by a lot. Well, I am reading some of the chat, but there is a lot of somewhat random things. No, I did not overlook e4 in the end, because the f5 pawn is pinned. This I actually did see. If he plays e4, he cannot recapture. He cannot recapture back, so this move actually does lose. But simply taking and going king g3 and playing e4 only later once I play bishop b. Hang on. e4 here is once again not possible legally because of the pin, but king f2 I think might give black decent drawing chances. No, the chat doesn't bore me. I'm actually very. I mean, the moment I started doing this, doing these things with like larger chat participation, they became a lot more interesting, because there are more things to discuss and more things to get excited about. But there's not a lot I can contribute to the discussion of the geographical location of the Chess24 office. Played e4 and knight f3. Let's play c4. Yeah, and GB is correct. King g2 followed by e4 is probably the cleanest option there. But yeah, just not a stellar game from any point of view from me. Starting from a number of really, really horrible mistakes in the opening, which went unpunished because I think my opponent just could not believe that I could be making moves this bad. This is what Hikaru has been doing quite a bit. I mean, I'm not sure what my... Yeah, this is the Hikaru reply to the English. It's actually very, very interesting and very, very playable. I'm not sure if black is doing great, but black definitely can do this if he wants. Knight f6, though, is somewhat incongruous with what black has been doing up to now, because I think the plan, at least the way Hikaru... This is a blunder, though. The way Hikaru has been playing the system is he was including h4, g4 and undermining it with f5, or maybe even starting with f5 to make the threat of h5, h4 a lot stronger. But my opponent just made a very, very large mistake here in the game. Well, I hesitate to say he's effectively over, but he is going to, I think, lose a full piece here. How are my chances of making the candidates? In order to make the next candidates, I would need to either finish top 2 in the forthcoming Grand Prix series, in which I will definitely play. I'm not going to be one of the people who refuse to play in it, but it's going to be a very, very tough field, and I haven't done particularly well in the Grand Prix series sort of ever. This year, the Grand Prix are not round robins. They will be, I believe, 24 player Swiss tournaments, which is going to be very exciting to watch, I think, and it's, I think, a good idea from FIDE's side to broaden the field, to make to make the tournament accessible to more people, because there's a lot of very exciting people out there who would dearly love a chance to compete for qualification. But they will be very, very tough tournaments. The fields are going to be very, very difficult. Or I would need to once again do well in the World Cup, which is, as life shows, it's not impossible, but it's not going to be easy. Once again, not entirely sure what I'm doing here, but I'll develop it to f2. I think it makes sense in these types of positions, because you don't, it makes your reactions to the Volga in particular somewhat more comfortable, because you don't the knight doesn't get in the way, is what I want to say. Although, I mean, Volga still remains perfectly playable, of course. Or the Benko, as people are probably more used to calling it. Yeah, black definitely gets your typical Benko type compensation here, and I will need to be very careful. Because these positions, if you if you miss something, they could just completely collapse for white. The fact that the knight is on f2 helps me against c4, knight d3 counterplay, so at least I shouldn't be worried about that. But there is all kinds of other things that can happen, like if the knight from f6 gets to b6, knight a4 becomes very much part of black's agenda, attacking. I mean, if the knight on c3 gets traded off, my queen side becomes very, very exposed. Plenty of counterplay black can try going for here. On the other hand, if he plays really, really slowly, I might be able to do something. And here already there is the option of playing f4, knight d7, bishop takes e7, but that bishop might get caught after f6. So I'm not sure if it's such a great idea for white here. And my opponent obviously wants knight c7, knight b5, which is very similar to the knight d7, knight b6, knight a4 idea that I described earlier. Kind of feel like doing it and testing, sort of testing my opponent's tactics here. I missed that altogether. That probably is a good reply as well. And now I think it all becomes a lot more, a lot sharper and a lot more concrete, because this dark square is an absolute dark square bishop is an absolute monster. And if I don't achieve something immediate on the king side, I will probably get rolled over, and my queen side will completely collapse. This move I don't particularly like. I think this is a bit too ambitious. I understand where my opponent is coming from, so to speak, but I think this is too ambitious, because he's giving me way too many pawns on the queen or on the king side. He should have just taken on e6. He would have had a similar position, but without this pawn on f5. and this is just a blunder. If you compare what my opponent got and this, I think it should be quite obvious that you always take on e6 and then you make a move like knight c7, for instance, trying to take this sting out, and then from a positional viewpoint, Black has a very decent game. He just needs to make sure he doesn't get mated, which is, I mean, still an open question. He might get mated here, but f5 just doesn't look right. Hello, Drac. My mods are here. Okay, so we should include some games against people rated somewhat lower, because I think, hang on a sec, scrolling is as usual not my strongest side, so I will give this one more shot and then just abandon all hope and pick someone at random. Yeah, and how can you not play against Ramsey Bolton? And it's my move. I should not repeat this fantastic experience of just waiting for my opponent to do something in a position where it's my move for about a minute and a half, and then saying this game is not going to start and aborting it. I've done this once, and I probably should remember never to do it again. Although this game really does seem like it's not going to start, but after all the speechifying, but at least this way it's not my fault. People really are very interested in whether I visited the. I assume that's a newly built Philharmony in Hamburg. I haven't even seen it from a distance. I just arrived yesterday and haven't really done much sightseeing. It's been snowing and I'm also somewhat tired. Okay, this experiment failed. Sorry, Ramsey. This will have to be scrapped. Whoops. Okay. Just as I was about to finish that game. I was, I think, within a millisecond of clicking the abort button there. Oh, a dragon aficionado. That worries me. And I generally played 9g4, I think, in these sessions, so I don't know why I castled. Somehow I always end up with absolutely the same position against whenever people play the dragon against me. I end up getting absolutely the same position time and time again. I don't know how this happens. It really should not be possible for every single dragon player to play the exact same line against me, but this is somehow what they do. Don't really understand it. And the line is g4, queen a5, knight g5, and then we play, and I'm kind of not enjoying it, to be honest. I would like to do something else. I'm kind of wondering if I can just play h5 here, but I don't really see mate. I don't know, I'll start with a3. It's probably a horrible move. I just want my opponent to start thinking, kind of not enjoying this experience of him not having to question any decisions at all. But this is slow, so slow that I have a suspicion even h5 might be a very good move here. Rook b8 though, I sort of assumed this is what I was playing against. That was kind of the entire point of me playing a3. I wanted to have this move in some positions, in particular in this position where it seems to just win a pawn for not a lot. That was more or less my my entire plan when I picked a3 as a move. Rook should probably go to c7 with a view of sacrificing it after bishop b6 because it really is a lot of time. Or rook f8. I mean, that should not. I mean, if I keep my wits about me, this should not work. There should not be enough play here for black. He does get to open some files on the queen side, but he also has to give up so much material to do that I should not really be in any kind of trouble here whatsoever converting my very large material advantage. Provided I don't blunder once again. This is goes without saying that I should not blunder here. Because in Dragon you can still run into trouble even if you're completely winning if you miss some tactics. When there's always some tactics. But yeah, objectively this has to be very, very bad for black. I'm not sure about this move, but I just want to, you know, once I'm given this opportunity to trade the light squared bishops, it feels like a good idea. Actually, this way, I mean, if he takes with a knight now, I will have to allow, okay, no longer relevant. Now I'm just a ton of material up and the game should end quickly. Yeah, it did not end up being a particularly interesting game, but yeah, normally what happens in my blitz sessions is that I play g4 here, people play queen a5, I go knight g5, they take, go, why, okay, I need to recapture this, yeah. Take, they go knight d7. I think I played this position at the very least maybe 3 or 4 times over the course of the Banter sessions here. And against different players as well, which is the most surprising bit. And this position I think is not that clear. And I was just trying to get something else because I was becoming a bit bored by playing this endgame over and over again. Accelerated Dragon is a playable opening. I don't know if I can say much else apart from that. It seems to be staging a bit of a comeback right now. From what I could see, there's been a number of games in the Accelerated Dragon recently, and serious players have started playing it again, I think. Whoa, exciting. Not gonna accept though. Might be forced to accept. I think I'll just go for the plan of castling queenside here. And that should be safe enough, I hope. I don't know if I should include e6 as well. It has both advantages and drawbacks, but I think maybe I should, just to stop d5. Because d5, in particular in connection with potential knight d4, knight e6, would have been troublesome later. And now I just want to castle queenside and Yes, White opened the G file, but he didn't really get too much mileage out of this. If I castle to the other side of the board. Yeah, both Caruana and MVL are in Jib. Well, will be in Jib. Not. I mean, they aren't currently in Jib. I would think it's a bit too early, but they are playing Jib over Vike, which is an interesting sort of shift in focus because I mean it kind of it really is a very a large statement of the sort of on the subject of how well respected the Gibraltar tournament is right now. If people are preferring it to Vike, and you have to assume both of them were invited to Vike. Although I don't know that for a fact, but that would be my immediate assumption because they are so strong, and it's very difficult to imagine any tournament not inviting them. I mean, any tournament of Vike's stature, which very much is one of the strongest tournaments in the calendar. This is a horrible move. I don't know what that is about. You can play Queen H5, forcing me to play B6 probably because all of my stuff is hanging on the king side. Also Queen B5, but this I am less worried about somehow. It's still very possible to get mated here, but I'm hoping to be able to dodge it. But yeah, it's getting a bit hot on the king side. I was planning to play knight c6, but then after knight rook b5, both queen a6 and more importantly rook takes b7, queen b5 check become very unpleasant threats. And if I play queen e4, I think every single endgame will be unpleasant, but I think I have to. After rook b5, I think I'm more or less forced to play queen e4. No, I'm sure there are practical considerations as well, Trotters, but no matter, that comes into the equation for sure, but I think the fact that the field is incredibly strong in Jib is more important than any monetary considerations people may have. Once again, I have nothing to base this opinion on. This is just how I think this works. And here he has something very unpleasant like rook h5, but on the other hand, this knight on h4 is a bit stupid. And I was hoping to play against the f2 pawn. Bishop g3 actually, I think maybe is the first move in this game by my opponent, which I don't quite agree with because it's way too slow, and now the rook on b5 is a bit stuck. More than a bit stuck actually. Now I'm suddenly a lot better because this rook will really struggle returning to the game. And yeah, here I'm just completely winning. This is not a very difficult conversion either because I mean the white pieces are just so discoordinated. Shouldn't really be an issue here. Don't really. I mean, it's very difficult to like pay too much attention to this because the position is just so utterly winning. I think I'll just make a pass pawn on the a file and queen it. I think this probably is the easiest way to go about things here. Just push it down the board. There's very little white can do here. He has one check. I mean, yeah, not a difficult conversion here. But I think I was in very, very serious trouble for large parts of that game. Okay, let's. I seem to be doing too well today, so let's play somebody who will completely destroy me, in particular since it's a 3-minute game. And I'll stick to my own repertoire for this game. I think it's wiser to not try the Dutch or something like that. Don't really remember very much about this, because the bishop really isn't supposed to go to f4 in these positions. It normally goes to h4, and there is actually a marked difference, because it surprisingly, even the fact that it kind of touches the pawn on e7 in many positions is very, very relevant. I'm wondering if I should just give up on the c6 pawn here, just give him the c6 pawn for just for tempo. I could also just play bishop d5. It gives up 2 tempi, but it makes certain sense as well. But no, I don't like giving up 2 full tempi here. I think this is better. He can take on b8 and on c6. That's obviously a possibility, but I will have decent prospects on the queen side. Yeah, I'm not quite sure who that is. I hovered over the name, and there's even a name on the file, but it's not a name I recognize. I have a feeling it might be a pseudonym of some sort. But with this rating, he must be very good. Need to pay attention here, because I would like this knight back in the game, but I need to make sure I don't blunder anything. And once again, I'm kind of. I just really want to do this. I think forcing him to play e3, e4 here makes a ton of sense. Although, yeah, I'm liking this less now. It's not horrible, but I'm not sure this is great. But I don't think he should have played e5, to be honest. I think giving me the d5 square is not ideal. I think a b5, cb5, d5 was a very, very serious opportunity, and also just ignoring what I was doing was quite decent. Need not to blunder takes, and rook takes b5, so the queen needs to support the rook on a7 somehow, or I can play rook a8. The knight goes to b6, and then we've managed to stabilize at least temporarily. And questions about this game hopefully will be answered after the game, but not during the game. During the game, this is a 3-minute game against a very strong opponent. I'm struggling to say much as it is, and I can't really be reading chat here. A bit too much. I have a good position now, but I still need to convert it. Need to start opening files in the center in order to do something here. I don't know why I really thought I should play queen c8 and then I play queen e6. I don't really understand this decision at all. Might lead to trouble now. Although not after this move, I expect. I don't know what this is, to be honest. He can play knight e6 and I will have to go back. It's becoming a bit random. And I really should start playing faster, but it's difficult. Yeah, and this is a very poor capture. I should not have done that. That definitely was a mistake. Rook a7 right now is a... Yeah, and this also is a problem, actually. I think I will end up getting mated somehow. And also 20 seconds against 30 when you also when you're still talking is not a good spot. Rook a7 is probably quite strong. Or that, yeah, that also is very, very good. Yeah, I had to stop talking at some point. And actually, this is sort of half playable, but of course, completely lost because of the time difference. Yeah, fair enough. I think the opening was very, very unclear, but somewhere here I have to be much better with the knight getting out. But the sequence of decisions I've taken starting from here, and in particular the speed at which I was playing, was just not good enough. And yeah, I really like the idea of well, I mean, it's not a difficult decision to make, but taking on b5 and then not trading the rooks to keep me constantly worried about the a file was very difficult to deal with with the time available. And actually, I considered in this position playing rook queen b8. Yeah, and that was not a good idea because of knight d7 immediately. But I refused it because of this. But actually, just giving up this exchange and playing something like rook e8 and taking the b-pawn is probably fine for black. But yeah, the position I got is just very, very difficult to play on very limited time. And here I was already actively looking for ways to give up this exchange. And if I could, for instance, play queen e6 here, it would be excellent if that only lost the exchange. But there's knight g5 check, which wins the queen. Yeah, and rook f4, knight d6 is just game over. I was hoping for rook a7, rook takes e4, queen takes e4, queen e6, which I think would have led to a very unclear position. But my opponent did not allow that, and yeah, I'm completely lost here. The game shouldn't even have continued as far as it did continue. Like in this position, I guess something like rook e1, I mean rook a1 followed by rook e1 is just winning. But yeah, an interesting game which, if this were a 4-minute game, I think I could have done a bit better with this position. But difficult to play against a player playing quite well and also trying to talk about it. And the conclusion of the game, he, I think, played very, very well. Let's do something weird. Let's do something weird. This is, of course, inadvisable because, I mean, this is the Sokolsky with the tempo down. So bishop takes b5 is very, very strong here. Let's see if my opponent realizes what he should be aiming for here. I think, you know, in terms of just outright refuting this, bishop takes b5 is probably the strictest option white has. Because if you keep this alive, black still has hopes of, you know, landing some kind of a quasi-Sicilian or quasi-French position where he might have half-decent chances. Yeah, no, I knew the risks, and I think I prefaced accepting that challenge by saying, let's get completely crushed, but you do have to try occasionally. important not to get mated here somehow. So I will try to control. I mean, the way you get mated in these positions is that you allow knight g5, and then it snowballs. Knight g5, queen h5, or queen g4. Then there's some sacrifice happening on f7 or e6, and you just get completely destroyed. Or you allow knight to h5. So I think we will have to be very, very careful about these squares. And the king is definitely not going to the king side. The king is either sticking to e8, or I could maybe find some kind of a favorable version and later in the game castle queen side. I'm also wondering if I should just play c4, because endgames will be quite decent if I play c4. And because my eventual plans will most likely feature castling queenside, I think just making sure this is an ambitious decision. Because I can play b3 and those two pieces are not coming back. But on the other hand, it will be very difficult for me to do anything on the queen side. This is a very interesting and ambitious decision, although my opponent maybe doesn't realize that. I really don't know what to do about this. Because I really will not be able to open the king side at any point. My position will collapse even with the two pieces locked down. But I should be quite safe with two of his serious pieces completely switched off. But how do I make much progress later? Let's see. I think maybe what I should be doing here is like going after the a4 pawn straight away. He probably wants to play bishop g5 here, which makes sense from a positional standpoint. But, I mean, he will be severely hampered by the fact that he doesn't have, you know, the normal amount of pieces in attack here. If you imagine the same position but with his bishop not on b1 but on, let's say, f1, you would say white is completely winning strategically. But with the bishop on b1, it's a bit less clear. From my standpoint, though, even collecting this pawn on a4 will not at all be easy, because it really takes about 5 tempi to get there. I have to play knight b6, then I have to take, and then to bring it back, I need to also include knight b7, because the knight on a5 will be hanging. So it really does take a tremendous amount of time for me to get all this done, which is quite clearly a problem. And this, I think, I mean, it's a... If I play h6, I have a feeling I might be getting mated, and I really don't want to play h5 either. Yeah, that's the thing. All of my plans on the queen side here are very, very slow. I'll do something weird here, because normally you really don't want to be giving up this amount of dark squares. But here I am basically, although yeah, I'm risking a great deal here. But I think I'm sort of committed to this now. I'm just not in time. I'm just not in time, I think. So the king has to run. And now I think my opponent kind of needs to, I mean, he is a bit all in here. Because, whoops, almost blundered that knight on a5, which would be a mistake. But I'm going to stop myself at the very last minute. Okay, so phase one is complete. We've won the a pawn, and now every single endgame is winning for us. But we still need to make sure nothing collapses on the other side of the board. But I think I'm sort of just in time with my restructuring. I can do this, and f7 is now safely protected, and now I can start shoving the a pawn down the board. And if he goes knight g4 here, I can even play h5 for fun and giggles. And frankly, I would start considering just sacrificing some pieces if I were my opponent. Because you're not winning the slow game here. But you're also probably not winning the fast game either, because the king is now where it's supposed to be. And I should be able to weather most direct assaults on the king side when the king is not there. It will still take some time, because I play a4, he plays rook a3, and it will still take me some time to shift. But we still are effectively a rook and a piece up to a, to a certain degree. You can describe it like this. And yeah, that's a large advantage. And he's even giving me the option to play a3, which I think I should just take. I mean, he might reconsider. He might reconsider, and if the option disappears, I will be very sad. And yeah, I'm not quite sure what's going on here. I'll just take. I mean, nothing really is hanging on the other side. And now that we've actually successfully pushed a3, our win on the queen side is completely secured. We don't need to do anything anymore. I will just actually I don't want to give up the b2 pawn. I was about to say that I will stabilize for a while and then switch to the play on the queen side, but actually no. No point. So that was a weird proof of concept, and I think objectively somewhere here my position has to be extremely dangerous. And also I think knight f6 check is just a mistake, because as we have seen in the game, he very, very quickly had to switch to that other plan of attacking the f7 pawn. So I think there is a lot of argument to be made for playing something like queen f4 immediately, or trying for rook e3, rook f3 as soon as possible. Perhaps start with knight h6. Because, I mean, we got here, and then the knight actually had to leave f6, because it's not really doing very much there. It looks very nice, but it doesn't really achieve a lot. But yeah, it's not for the weak-hearted, this type of game. Yeah, you really do have to be premium to play Banter Blitz games. And there was also a request for the Scotch on Twitter, so we'll play the Scotch. I played when I was much younger, and I was playing the Scotch semi-seriously. I was playing 92 here. Morozevich recently played a very weird move, h2, h4 in this position, and actually won in 25 moves against a very strong opponent. I can't quite remember who in the Doha tournaments, but to play h4 you kind of need to understand what the idea is, and I don't, so I'll stick to what I sort of remember. This is not a very good move though, because it's just not fast enough. It makes a lot of sense positionally, because you want to put this piece on f3, supporting the pawn on e5, which black in a lot of cases plays against in these structures. And you know, if you consider it in those terms, it's a very sensible idea, but it's a bit slow. Actually, I'm not sure about this knight e4 move at all. Yeah, I think that was against Vishy, but I think Vishy just didn't play that game particularly well. He does occasionally have, you know, off games, so to speak. Yeah, queen e6 is very strong here. I kind of failed to consider it. I think because of that knight c4 was probably a lot better than what I played. Because I'm sort of wondering what I'm doing here right now, to be honest. very, very uncertain about my next decisions. I can play c4, but once again, it just looks incredibly slow. I can play knight g5 maybe, but it really doesn't belong there. But I think of the options available to me, I like this the best. If he goes knight b4, I can still play a3. And if he plays d5, it becomes a bit of a mess, but I think it's playable for white. And if he goes knight b6, I can play b3. And at least, you know, structurally, I'm not doing that horribly. And I am 2 moves away from making sense of my position by playing bishop b2 and long castles. Knight f6 is a really, really weird decision. That's, I think, not something you should be doing in almost any situation. And yeah, I'll go with the most obvious plan of just castling long here, because I mean it looks like my queenside position is somewhat exposed, but actually with the bishop coming to d4, it's not. And what my opponent succeeded in doing by playing knight f6 and gf6 is just completely destroying his kingside structure and making, you know, most endgames are now close to hopeless for black, and also in the middle game you might get mated. It was a really strange decision. I mean, there was also, what was even stranger about it is that there was absolutely no call for it. Nothing in his situation, I'm sorry, required him to do that. I think I can take. I mean, obviously I can take, but I think I can sort of keep the material. If he plays a6, I take, he goes rook a8, I go bishop b5, rook takes a2, and just king c2. And if he does that, yes, d5 is a bit of an annoying threat, but I think I'm safe enough here. Although maybe it was better not to allow any of this. But it is a reasonably healthy pawn, and it was very difficult to reject the idea of taking it. Yeah, a6 is a good move here. Now with the pawn on b3, taking on a6 is a lot less attractive because rook takes a2. I'm sorry, it would have been a lot bigger, issue. But I should, I'm sorry, something is happening to my voice. I should still be better here. Like in a position like this, I should still be better. Although this allows rook d8, I'm a bit unhappy about, well, more than a bit unhappy about how I'm treating this. If I'm allowed to play king c3 and bishop c2, I have a very large advantage, but he probably should not allow that. I mean, should be able not to allow that is what I'm trying to say. But here my king actually lands on c3, and I think, I mean, this bishop ending will be completely hopeless for black, unless something really drastic happens, which I don't think it will. I'll take with the f-pawn. It shouldn't really matter, but in terms of him having options to create a passed pawn somewhere, I would much rather he created a passed pawn on the f-file rather than the h-file, because it's a lot easier to control. I'll go a4, a5, and then I'll go after his pawns, because that way we will be able to win a lot easier. Actually, if he goes h4 here, I'm kind of wondering if maybe I cannot take, which would be regrettable. I think I might not be able to take. I thought I will just be able to take here with no issues. But it does seem to be takes f4, h5, f3, king d2. It's a very, very committal thing. I mean, I can continue ignoring this, but it gets a bit tricky. Kind of want to take. I can even play h6 now, forcing his king away. And then we play king d2. Because that way his bishop will not be able... the move I was worried about if I played king d2 here straight away was bishop e4. And this we do not allow by playing h6 here. If he has a wasted tempo on king f6, then we should definitely be able to control his pawns. And we have too many passers here. And this should be winning, I think, because of queen d8 check. Although, once again, maybe I overestimated just how comfortable this victory is. Maybe it's just not that comfortable. I somehow assumed it will be very, very easy to control the possible checks he can give here. Don't really want to play king b2. I mean, I can if I need to, but don't really want to. I think I'll check once again. Maybe he makes a mistake. Yeah, here, this is what I was kind of hoping for, because I think if I play king d4, my life becomes a lot easier for the future. If I activate this, if I actually play with the active king instead of a passive king somewhere around b2. Because he really doesn't have a lot of counterplay here. Or at least he shouldn't have, if I play correctly. Like maybe even just continue pushing forward. Yeah, we won on time, but I think the final position actually is completely winning for us. But I think my plan here was a bit too slow. After f4, king c3, bishop d5, maybe the simplest way to win is just to play something like bishop d1, bishop takes g2, bishop e2, and make sure that no passed pawns I ever created on the king's side, and then just start pushing on the queen's side. I may have taken it a bit too, you know, in a too relaxed fashion somewhere around here. But really, there was absolutely no call for black to play knight f6. It's a very, very strange decision. And yeah, I wasn't really paying attention to chat during the game, but it seems like there isn't a lot there that requires immediate attention. Why not take on a6? I guess it was like in position somewhere around here. I could take on a6 with a check. Yeah, that I really should have done. Yeah, of course Aram is correct. Yeah, for some reason in my mind I was calculating like queen b6 check, he goes king e7. And taking on a6 without check is sort of out of the question because black will get too much counterplay. But I actually missed an opportunity to take on a6 with check, which should not be. Although, even here, he goes king e5, and I suddenly have no checks. And if I have to start allowing checks, the king on c3 might be in trouble. So it made sense what I did. Like I secure my king position, and here I have a choice between putting it safe on b2 or driving it forward towards d4 and c5, which I think was a very good practical decision. I think I haven't played d4 yet. During this session. And yeah, okay, that's a mistake which I caught in time. I looked at the rating and I thought, yeah, this is someone very strong, but I mean, we can't play non-premiums. Can't play non-premiums, my mistake. Caught myself in time there. The 26, 27 confused me. Yeah, I could have played bishop d1 there, now or never, but then he goes takes, king e4, bishop e2, king e3, bishop takes e4, and then bishop b7. And I was worried that he will be in time to... it's very difficult to discuss the position without the game on the board, so I think maybe we should abandon it. But I did consider it. It was very much... it was a very serious option that I needed to evaluate properly, and you are correct mentioning it, but I eventually decided that pushing the h-pawn up the board was more precise. I may have been wrong. And frankly, the way the game went, I don't think my decision looked wrong. It looked like I should be winning after just playing gh, h5, h6, h7. Doesn't seem to be starting this one, so we'll give it another 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I think there's a weight of opinion in chat that I should be playing more games against lower rated people, so I'll pick someone below 2000 for the next one. I mean, there's obviously plenty of them, but I also wanted to find something which is not a 5-minute challenge, but that's difficult. That appears to be almost impossible. Yeah, I apologize if I haven't been using the word objectively as much as I normally do. What shall we play? Let's play the Peerts. This is a tricky little line. I don't have that much experience with it, but I know that, you know, not a lot of people do this, but it's a very sensible little line, which I don't think gets the credit it deserves. That's not entirely fair now or never. I do try to play play the stronger players as much as possible, because I feel that that way this is of course mainly, you know, infotainment with the emphasis on the entertainment, but educational value of these shows, whatever. I mean, however, you know, it's arguable how much of it there is, but I think it improves if I play against stronger opposition and face sterner tests than you know, compared to the games where I can just coast and just exploit my opponent's mistakes without really being tested properly. But I do play. I mean, it's definitely not only 2400 and above. not sure about knight h4 because I was actually considering play bishop g4 anyway, and now I will do it with an extra tempo, so to speak. Not that white's position necessarily becomes horrible after it, but I don't think you should be so relaxed about giving your opponent exactly what he wants. I wanted to play bishop e6, but then I realized that after bishop h6, white's setup starts making a lot of sense, which is not ideal. And I would like to have e7, e5 as a reply to bishop h6, but that means I need to put my bishop on a weird square, maybe even all the way back to c8. And white can also just play knight f3 here. He can also play bishop takes d5, but that probably doesn't quite work out tactically. I think knight f3 is probably the most logical move here. Or knight d2. Knight d2 is also a normal move, but I think you would generally like as white to start getting your pieces back onto normal harmonious locations. And after knight d2, an additional option, yeah, knight f3, I like knight f3. The additional option I would have had after knight d2 would be knight takes g5, queen takes g5, and then e7, e5, using the fact that the queen, the knight on h4 is hanging and the queen on g5 is currently hanging. And here I sort of originally thought f7, f6 wins a piece, but it kind of doesn't because he can take on e4 using the fact that the pawn on d5 is suddenly pinned. Yeah, white has a very decent position still. I think he should take with the queen. If he takes with the knight, I think I get the option to play e7, e5, which is something I would very much like to do, because I think the current structure is very solid and fine for black, but I would much rather my bishop on g7 was a lot more active. And in view of that, both knight f3 and now taking on g5 with the queen make a lot of sense in order to stop any possibility for black to open up the center with e6, e5. And I'll start gaining space on the queen side here. This generally is maybe not such an easily advisable move in these structures because the c5 square becomes very weak. But in a situation where he doesn't really have a dark square bishop and I do, I think I should be able to control the c5 square well enough. I also probably should have considered playing knight a5, knight c4 straight away, and bishop d7 is a bit of an autopilot move, which it's not a bad move, and it is the best square for this piece, but I think maybe it wasn't exactly required at this particular moment. And I don't like this bishop c2 move at all, because I think he should not have given me this opportunity of playing knight c4 and more or less forcing him to take, because he doesn't really want to abandon the b2 pawn. But if he takes, I take with the b pawn, and then he has a very serious structural weakness on b2 I should be able to play against. 960, I mean, I would very much like to play more 960 in my life, but I'm not sure how well equipped we are at Chess24 for doing that. I would very much like to keep both of my bishops here, and I think I can do that. Because bishop takes e5 followed by rook b8 just wins a pawn here, but it gives up my best bishop. And I think in terms of playing for the most advantage I can have here, bishop e8 is more ambitious and is more correct. If he plays rook e2, rook b8, bishop d1, I can play bishop f8. And because the b2 pawn is pinned, I think there's really no good defense against bishop takes a3, as far as I can see. And this I can just safely ignore. He plays f5, I just don't react, I take on b2. And his position should start collapsing. Yeah, I'm very much a Dostoevsky man. I can, that one I can settle very easily. Although, after the name six Canadian cities, I'm very worried about ever mentioning Norm again. Norm definitely disagrees with me on this one. Norm at some point went on a huge Twitter rant on the subject of Tolstoy being the best writer that ever was, and Dostoevsky being, still a writer by Norm standards, which are very lofty, and Norm really doesn't consider very many people to be writers at all. So he at least counts Dostoevsky among actual writers, but he feels that it is, I think, at least he used to feel that he was very much sort of lower leagues. And for me personally, it works in exactly the opposite way. Somebody called Cricket. How do we not play somebody called Cricket? Norm is Norm MacDonald. The Norm is one of the best things that happened ever. Very nice forward defensive there, but doesn't seem to be playing a shot in this game. Come on. Ah, there we go. What shall we do against this very popular move? I don't know, I'll play g6 here for no real reason that I can name. I think if he wants, yeah, if he plays the English attack, I think it makes sense to play g6 as early as possible, because it gives us additional options, since we haven't really committed to either d6 or e6, and we can choose later. It also helps if you actually know something about the Grand Prix, and I don't. Yeah, I was kind of worried about c4, but on the other hand, I mean, we do have the bishop pair, and how bad can this be? The answer is, of course, very bad if I don't play this well, and I should be very worried about white still playing f5 and giving mate. Which is why I think I will start something, or at least attempt starting something which is a source of immediate counterplay. Quite seriously dislike the way I treated the sort of the post-opening phase of this game. Pretty sure I should have been a lot more precise, and I am now facing very serious potential issues. I think I have to do this. It might not be particularly good, but I think I absolutely have to do this. Because I need to distract him from just giving mate on the king side, pretty much. Like f5, queen h4, bishop h6, when white has such a stable center, is an incredibly potent plan you have very few options against. And because of that, maybe he could have considered playing a5 on the previous move, so that I don't have this option at all. Because now suddenly I actually have something to look forward to. I'm making progress on the queen side. And with the queen side open, it will be a lot harder for him to give mate on the other side of the board. Could still happen, of course. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot fewer pieces on the board now for him to attack with. And I can sort of pester him on the queen side a lot. Knight g5 is just one check pretty much. He can play knight g5, I just take this pawn, and if he takes on f6, I take with the pawn. He gives me one check on h7, and that's it. Yeah, I could distract him by singing or minging, obviously, but I'll refrain from doing that. Actually, bishop h6 might not be so stupid here. I somehow completely discounted his kingside attack now, which maybe was a bit over-optimistic. But if he starts with bishop h6, maybe I can take and play queen f8 if I'm really scared. I don't like this move. I think this just gives me too much credit. I mean, now I feel like I should be winning with almost any move, frankly. It's just a very, very weird decision. Like, even c4 looks extremely attractive. Also, queen a6 is a very strong move, seemingly. That, I think, is just sort of giving up on the whole concept. And, yeah, I don't believe this was correct. There are some issues with both of my options, though. That's a cute little move, but it actually doesn't quite work, I think. So I'll take him up on this. We actually tried the time odds once, Blue Knight, and that was fun, but it does take some time to set up, and this is why it hasn't really been repeated since. But yeah, it's an interesting idea, and I actually came up with it myself, so I'm quite happy. I'm quite happy about that. The reason my opponent thought this was impossible was that he was planning to take, give me a check on c8, I play bishop f8, and he goes bishop h6. But in that position, I can play queen d1 check, king f2, and knight g4 check, picking up that bishop. So yeah, the whole concept doesn't seem to work, and therefore I just win a very, very important central pawn here, and my position is totally winning. I should pay attention, because he must mean something by doing this, but I think I'm just winning after this move, and I don't really want to check it too carefully. He wants to play queen d7, obviously, but my original idea... No, that shouldn't work. That really shouldn't work. I really want to play rook takes f3, but that is also not as winning as I originally thought, which is regrettable. I seem to be, you know, lacking a final blow in that line. But I can just take, I guess, since there's really not a lot happening on the queen side anyway. I mean, on the king side. He doesn't really have any pieces to attack with. The schedule of Vaikenze has been available for a while. Should probably start playing faster as well. And yeah, it remains to be seen if he wants to flag me in this position, but I will probably be fast enough. And I think simply allowing me the counterplay with b5 was the source of his worries initially. Just play a5 here. I can open some files, but it will be a lot less effective if the pawn on c4 stays where it is. Okay, let's play maybe the last two, because I have a specific train I have to aim against if I am to make dinner. And it's very important to make dinner. And by make dinner, I mean, of course, make it in time for dinner, not make actual dinner. I'm completely incapable of that. And in order not to miss that train, I should probably limit myself to around 2 hours. Bishop d4, yeah, why did I? Yeah, that was completely ridiculous. And I saw it in some other positions. Yeah, good spot, Alexander Potier. I for some reason, I only wanted to play bishop d4 check after the exchange sacrifice on f3. Just tuned out there. I actually played the bird in a tournament game, Jogger, so it's an opening you can try. I'm not sure it's all that great, but it's definitely something you can try. I played it against Dmitry Yakovenko with white once in a Russian super final. So in a very serious tournament I cared a great deal about. Should probably make sure I don't blunder any tactics here. Start with c3. There have been some changes in the Fabio management team, but I'm not entirely sure what they are. I will have one day of commentary with Lawrence. I think it will be round 3, if I remember correctly. So if there will be enough public demand, I might try to get him to talk about it. These types of positions you normally see from Caro-Kann, and they aren't really a lot for white. It looks nice because you have this knight on e5 and your pieces look harmonious, but also black has zero weaknesses and very, very solid structure. And the only way you make some kind of progress is if you start actual attack on the king side, and that is much easier said than done. And also there is obvious counterplay with c6, c5 available to black if he wants. And I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing with my bishop on c1. Maybe I could try playing bishop h6 or bishop g5, one of those two. The problem is that, you know, bishop g5 is a lot more attractive than bishop h6 because I would very much like to get the dark square bishops off the board, but it's impossible because I will lose a piece after f6. Yeah, and this is a strong move because if I play bishop h6 now, which is what I was planning to do, he has f6 and the queen on c7 protects the pawn on g7 and I actually lose material. Yeah, these last few moves did not really go according to plan for me. Kind of dislike my position now. If he plays c5 here, my position actually becomes a bit awkward because I still haven't managed to develop the c1 bishop anywhere, and he starts creating, well, not threats as such, but sort of there is definite pressure against my center here. I'm not sure. I mean, it's very difficult to pick names in that context, Klamar. I still like listening to Yasser a lot, but that might be. I mean, he's a fantastic commentator, but it might be influenced by. I mean, just the sound of his voice is very soothing. I think we are, you know, living in a golden age of chess commentary, to be honest. I think there's a lot of very, very good people working in that field right now. I would like to start pushing the h-pawn, because with the bishop on g6, my one good plan here is to play something like queen g4, h4, h5, but I also would like to control this knight on d5 so that it doesn't get switched over to f5. But maybe this isn't that much of a concern, because if knight d7, I have bishop b4, I have bishop g5. Tata Steel Chess website is a bit confusing, but if you're looking for the detailed schedule, it is somewhat surprisingly not found under the schedule tab, which is where you would expect it. You go to, I think, visit us, and then you go to masters, and then there is a tab you can click which is called, I believe, program. And then suddenly, voila, you have the complete schedule for the tournament. And my opponent should not have resigned here. I actually am not quite sure if this is strong, because after rook d8, he might be winning his piece back with dividends, because after bishop b3 has queen a5. And I had actually seen all this, but like not taking this piece would look even more ridiculous, I think. And I decided to check, and he just resigned, which is a very good, it's a very good practical situation for me. But in the interests of honesty, I have to point out that I don't see any way for myself to keep the piece after rook d8. Okay, one or two last games, depending on how the last one goes. Somehow today everybody is challenging me to a 5-minute game, and as the session progresses, it becomes a less and less attractive proposition to play a 5-minute game. You want something which goes by faster. b3, b6 is not really the way to reply to b3, I'm pretty sure, but I somehow always end up getting sucked into this thing. It really isn't good in any way. I don't know why I keep on doing this to myself. Like, this is a fantastic Paulson for white if he just plays d4 here. Doesn't want to, invent a bicycle and just goes d4, c4, knight takes d4. You get a fantastic version of very normal Paulson positions. I honestly don't know what is constantly possessing me to bang my head against this particular wall time and time again. I don't want to allow knight a4. The reason for b5 is not that I want to create a threat of b5, b4, which is not a threat at all, because he has knight a4 in reply. I want to make sure that the bishop doesn't get chased away from c5 straight away. And this way I secure, I think on the previous move e4, e5 may have been very strong, and my opponent just ignored it for reasons of expediency. But allowing it on the next move would really be very careless from me. Knight g4 may have been very strong there, yeah. That's a very good point, Penguin Do. Yeah, knight g4 was crushing, because castles queen h4 is kind of mate. And if he doesn't castle, he has no good way to protect the pawn on f2. Yeah, I also sort of autopiloted there for a second. It's I do feel a bit tired. And yeah, quality definitely suffers. May have missed knight takes b5 here. Well, I definitely missed it, and it might be very strong. Although I could still play something like Queen b6 and just pretend it was all part of the grand plan. And also after Rook fd1, I definitely should have given some consideration playing Knight g4 again. I keep on missing this opportunity in this game. It's kind of weird. Missing it once is sort of understandable, but missing it twice is really, there's no excuse. And actually my opponent should play a4, and if I play b4 he should play a5, so I'm sort of playing with, well, not fire exactly, but I am allowing a very important option for him, and he is not taking the chance. So I'll start doing something on the king side. Not playing g3 is just unthinkable here. You absolutely have to play g3 for better or worse. I mean, because yeah, with the h-file open, this is just completely dead. There's no way you can hold this position. It just collapses. There are too many things going wrong with your position here. There should be some kind of forced mate, which it is. Okay, one final game, I guess, because I do feel a bit jaded, to be honest, and it's in no one's interest, I think, for me to play poorly. The point Nunak is making in chat about commentators, you know, whenever possible, not using machines during commentary, I think it's a valid one, and I think we do try not to use the machines as much as possible. And the other point that he is making, I mean, he is very, very categorical about it, and I have to say, I would like the same thing stated slightly more, well, in a somewhat less commanding tone, but I do think that it's a valid point, because if you stare at the machine evaluation for any length of time, it does most certainly influence your way of thinking. And I mixed up a move order here. I think you're supposed to start with c6 and only take on d4 later. And yeah, this is the main position, but I think we were supposed to get to it via a different move order. I used to play this line a great deal when I was trying to incorporate the King's Indian into my repertoire, which was about 20 years ago. But since it was so long ago, my memory of what goes where is hazy. This doesn't look right, because it allows me, and I will not miss this idea for 2 games in a row. It allows me to do this. And here I have a choice between Queen h4, no, I think Queen h4 check is just stronger. Because I can also go Knight g4, Knight takes h6, but then my knight is locked out. I think actually just giving up the d6 pawn for very fast development and to keep my knight on e5, it just makes more sense to me. I don't think it was worth a pawn to just misplace your knight so badly. So yeah, in terms of using or not using machines during commentary, I mean, I am very much on the record in detail about this, and my views should be reasonably well known. And there are some positions in which I feel it's impossible, well, not impossible, but it's wrong not to use the machine, because you're just wasting everybody's time in a position where there clearly is a solution, and that solution is readily available to anyone watching the game on, well, any website, because he will have access to what the machine is saying immediately. But in most reasonably quiet positions, I think it's better for the user's experience if the commentators try to stay away from the machine evaluation for as much as possible. I would very much like to find mate here, because it feels like I should be able to drive the queen away from the good squares here and give mate. I mean, the start is almost always rook e5, but then I am a bit confused. I can play queen f4, but then he takes, I take, and he has rook e2. That's not mate. I can also just play b6, but then the rook on e8 is hanging. Really feels like I should have mate here. I can also just play knight e5, which is, it gives me a crushing advantage, but it kind of feels boring to do that. Probably is the strongest move though. Because I threaten, like rook f1 for instance just loses to queen g5 here, and the queen on c5 will get picked up by a, or even this actually. This allows me to show the same idea, but then with slightly more finesse. G2 is hanging, and I will pick up the queen by going knight f3 check next move. I very rarely play the King's Indian these days. It's not an opinion that agrees with me, an opening that agrees with me. My results weren't horrendous, but they weren't good either, and I never really felt in control, and I never really felt like I knew what I was doing. So I just gave up and went back to the Grunfeld. Yeah, and that does seem like a very nice symbolic picture on which to end the show. We finish on 2800 even. I think that's fair. I think that should conclude the broadcast for today. There probably will be something on the rest day. I'm not entirely sure what. For those of you who might be interested in that, I probably will be doing the first run of Shady's stream as a co-op. That should start at 10 o'clock Central European. But there probably will be something chess related later in the day. Nothing has been decided yet, but probably will be something. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for keeping me company in chat, and see you guys tomorrow for the first round of the Tata Steel Vaikanzai tournament. Cheers, everyone.